I have worked at some of the largest corps in the world by God's amazing grace. And I hung my hat up at Shell Oil Company. And I lived all over the world. I've worked in over 50 plus countries. Probably I've lived in about 8, 9, I don't know. I stopped counting. And what an incredible experience, first and foremost, just to learn about culture and people and meet people where they are in life and just get a chance to understand how people think and what's important to them. And that's been, people will ask me, what's been your biggest life lesson? It's just the ability to learn how people think and what's important to them. And that's always been the biggest gem of what I've received and back from the incredible opportunities I've been able to have. And so I ran Shell. I ran a user experience for Shell over 150 countries and 150,000 people. And it was probably the most. It was the NBA ring. Where's Peter? It was the NBA ring of my career. I played basketball, ran track at the University of Arizona, so I still play hoops. So Peter, we have to figure out what court we're going to get. We're going to got a mean 3-pointer still. I just going to tell you right off the bat. Yeah. But awesome. Anyhow. Yeah. So it's been a great ride so far, and it's just beginning. I think the second half is going to be much better than the first half. So. When I left Shell, one of the most important things for me was to figure out, sometimes we get to that age and that point where we say, all right, what's important to us? And what most important thing for me was, well, how do I give back? And how do I bring something to humanity and for everybody, not just for some people? And so it was really important. And while I was in the Netherlands, I started to visit a couple of refugee camps. I had lived experience because my mom, who I took care of for about 10 years. She had very bad type 1 diabetic, and she came to help me. I went to Europe in 1995 to do some work there, and she helped take care of the kids. And then I was going through an unfortunate separation at the time. And so when I came back, I said, Mom, you can stay. I could use your help. And then a year later, she had a massive heart attack. And we saw every IST there is in the book, right? Podiatrist, endocrinologist, a cardiologist, blah, 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 blah. And back in 1997, 98, there was no real technology out there. We barely had data in electronic medical record form. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna put this on the shelf because I'm IT, right? I've been in technology all of my career, and I said, because the technology is not there, but I'm gonna come back and address this at some point. And when the crisis hit Europe, I was living in the Netherlands at the time. And I said, I'm going to start figuring out how we help people, because the biggest challenge in the world is with refugees in general, when you move out of your own home and now into these camps, is what do you think we lose first at that point, right? Is our dignity, right? We can't take care of ourselves. These people have more degrees than a thermometer, and they're sitting there and their life's just decimating in the front of them, right? So how do we give them their dignity back? How do we help them? When I went to visit them, they said the biggest problems we have is really around health, right? People are very transient. And so people are moving, doctors are moving, healthcare, physicians are moving in and out of these facilities. People can't share data very easily, and I started scratching my head and went, well, in 1997, yeah, that's right. And now it's time to pull that to the forefront of the brain and see if we can do something about it. So we'll talk a little bit about what B1OS does today. The one thing I want you to keep in your mind as we go through this, though, is just think about how many people are on the move in the world today. Yeah, if you just think of it, there's now over 95 million people that are displaced. It was 84 before Ukraine. Yeah. So now over 95 million who don't have access to their health information, 9 out of 10 times. And I'm a globetrotter. I've been all around the globe. I had 5 round the world trips in like my first year and a half when I worked for a company in Phoenix, Avnet. I never had access to my health information. And you think about it. We don't think about it. We think we're in such great health, right? But a friend of ours in the Netherlands went to Spain on holiday, and 40-year-old couple. She took a bad fall, broke her arm. Any one of us can do that, right? She happened to be allergic to an anesthetic. Out of all the frenzy that was going on, that didn't get communicated properly. Gave her that anesthetic, and she died. Right? And how do we prevent that? And Johns Hopkins have done a report that over 250 to 400,000 people in the United States alone every year, that's a daunting number, die in early death because of incorrect information. They don't have all the information on the patient. There's safety issues that happen and whatnot. And so systems, as you well know, we're all, everybody says, well, who's the product for? Well, 8 billion people, that's who the product's for, right? But we'll talk about how we get through that. So that's just a little bit. So let's start with, what are we on? We're on really a critical mission to really empower people, educate people, and equip them with their health information, right? And I mean, like all of their health information, not just because in Epic, for example, right, you have my chart. But if you could see 5 different doctors that all have Epic and none of their systems talk to each other right here in New York City, unless you go to NYU, who is brilliantly handling that problem, right? But within their constructs, because I've talked to some of their folks there, but you must be in their Langhome system.
Yes.
Yep, because if you're not, and you go to Northwell and you have a doctor in Northwell, well, those two don't talk to each other. So how do we finally get in front and solve this problem? And I'll just come up front, HIPAA is a joke for us, right? So, and people hate me or love me, but that's just how I am. And I think HIPAA is the HR of corporate, right? They're there for the institution. They're not there for us as an individual. So how do we fix that problem? And so I happened to go get the guy who helped write HIPAA. We found each other, our paths crossed, and he's now one of my most senior medical advisors, because back in 97, when his wife, Mary Tyler Moore, was fighting for the diabetes JDRF issues, he was talking to Clinton and Gore about electronic medical records, and that is Dr. Robert Levine, and he's brilliant, and he has been a cardiologist at Mount Sinai, and he's like, finally, somebody's going to go fix this problem. Let's go make it happen, So it's time. And because of the refugee situation, that has just exacerbated the issue. And we really need to get on top of this whole, how do we identify you and how do we help you to not only be able to have your records literally at your fingertips, but how do we educate you from those records, right? Because no system is out there and our data is in 20 different systems and it's doing nothing for us. And it's definitely not paying us, right, Robert? So the power of one is all about that comprehensive system out there that really brings everything together. And we truly are creating the world's first borderless health information system, right? Because tomorrow you can go to Tokyo, and if a doctor in Tokyo needs to see you, doesn't have access to you, and John Doe and Jane Doe goes there, and Jane Doe passes out, so her husband takes her, and they have no idea, doctor has no idea, most likely speaks a little English, by the way, right? But has no idea what's going on. Frantic situation. The guy could either, number one, show him the medical records right off her profile because they've shared information, or within 2 minutes, that doctor can get on for free, because it's free for all medical professionals and institutions anywhere in the world, and can get on and within 2 minutes can have read ability to be able to see the most crucial information he needs to know about that particular person. And that's what's kind of got us past the goal line with a lot of doctors. So problems, we all know it, right? It's just systems out there, they're redundant, they're siloed, they don't talk to each other, restrictive access and sharing. Even my chart, if you ever try to share a my chart record, it's the most ridiculous thing in the world. So one of my business partners he goes to your facility, right? Not yours, but New York, NYU's facility was fabulous, but it's Epic, right? And it has my chart in the front of it. And I said, let's just run a test. It took us literally 10 minutes to get through the process. And you better be conscious on the other side of it, because otherwise you're not going to be able to share it, right? Because I have to do something on my side. He has to do something on his record. It's just the most crazy situation in the world. So visibility between providers is not there. And that's something they've been working on for a very long time, right? So it is about time that we get there now. So a lot of people heard the word Web3, right? Web3 is very, it's a prevalent phrase out there now. So what is Web3? It's all about data on the blockchain, right? And it's all about AI and machine learning, right? And we hear a lot about that in the finance world, right? Everybody wants to DeFi everything, right? Democratize and get rid of the banking system and all that good stuff. And so it's such a prevalent challenge that we have around health data. I went to MIT and I started studying blockchain very deeply because I come from the world of coding. I think, Mark, you were talking about earlier, maybe it was you, I don't know, or it was Leonard, one of the other one that was talking about punch cards on the mainframe system back in the day, right? And so back in the day, I came a little after that, but I came in that days where we were, it was Leonard, huh? Leonard, yeah. So I came a little behind the punch cards, but I really wanted to jump into code to figure out, could we put data on the blockchain? And by the way, could that get rid of all of our regulations, right? All of the regulatory BS that we talk about, because technically it's my data. So if we could just put HIPAA and everybody else aside for a moment and just think about it, if we actually had access to our data and that was already integrated, I put my data on Facebook and HIPAA can't say a thing about it. It's my data, right? I can do whatever I want with it. So why not give people access to that data, integrate that data, make it interoperable, right? And be able to utilize now the technology that we have to get the best benefit and value out of that, right? So we believe strongly in Health 3.0, which really looks at blockchain, AI, ML, and it is your health beyond borders. Now with BIOS, you can have a BIOS profile, travel anywhere in the world. You can get on an airplane going to Tokyo, and if Tokyo happened to have BIOS, let's look at Uber. Let's say Mary was at the Uber area by then, and BIOS was there, right? Then literally you can look with literally either a zip code or a city, and you can say, all right, I'm going to Tokyo. How many hospitals are in Tokyo that are on BIOS? And all of them should be, because it's free, right? And it could be a standalone system outside of their existing systems if they want. But if there's 157 hospitals that came up with one button in our app, you can click, and the 157 hospitals will be able to read your profile because you consented to it.
Right, but why would you even want? You don't have to do that. Your data. Why don't you have direct access to the automated?
I can't hear you very well, Robert. I'm sorry.
You don't necessarily need the hospital. Why don't you just have your own portal so that even if you're unconscious, if someone knows how to access it.
That's the whole point. You're unconscious. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying if you go to Tokyo, you're in the airplane, and you're gonna say, just in case I fall unconscious because I'm by myself on this trip, my data's already, they already have access to it, right? They already have access to it because I allowed it. Because with that click of a button, they can see it.
Why don't we just give them, because it's internet, why don't we just give them universal access no matter where you are, so even if they're not on the system?
Oh, we can do that. Yeah. I was just giving you specifics on if you want to go somewhere specifically. Yeah, we can do that from a universal perspective, absolutely. But that's just code, isn't it? Right? Yeah. So, but the whole point is that you can revoke it at any second that you want to give it, right? You can give it away. You can also revoke it that quick, right? So, some of the key components that we've got in BIOS is, number one, it is a personal health vault, right? The data is on blockchain. It's immutable data. We have patented technology, which is biometric. And when people think of biometric, they think of, like a facial on your phone, right? Or a fingerprint, right? We've taken it to the next level. So we currently have an entire handprint patented, right? So all your fingertips, your palm print, everything, because it gives what we call less false positives, right? Where it identifies you falsely, right? And when you look at someone's health, obviously that's something that needs to be 100% on. And so with patented technology behind that, we are integrating IoT devices, right? And so we are working with a partner as well that we're getting ready to start talking to. They've already done a lot of that, but we've got data everywhere, right? We wear it on a watch, we have it on a ring, we sleep on our mattress, we take a glucose measure, we do blood pressure, whatever it is. You stand on a scale. All of that is in separate systems, and none of that is telling you anything holistically about your health. What if a doctor could see 2 months of you when he goes in, and when you go in to see him or her, instead of 5 minutes of you, right? So now that doctor would have the ability, if you shared your data with that doctor, would have the ability to be able to say, I want to see you from the last 30 days, Mary, or the last 60 days, right? Now, maybe we can get in front of misdiagnosis, right? Maybe we can get in front because they can see something that they didn't see before. Because everybody talk about healthcare data. It's sick data. We go to the doctor 9 out of 10 times when we're not well, right? Who's looking at us the rest of the 300 days of our lives, right? And then how do you correlate that data together and bring it together to put more information out there that's valuable to both the medical professional and to ourselves? And so we're doing that real-time data. Every time data goes into your profile, everyone you've shared that profile with, if they have access to see that, can see that, yeah, because there's different levels of sharing inside of it and whatnot. And, we are looking to go to retinal. We're looking to do facial and voice in the future as well, because I want to jump on the sex trafficking issue. So human trafficking, sex trafficking is a big, it's just one of the biggest problems we have in the world. And I'm a mother, I have children, and I can't even imagine something happening to my children in that capacity, right? And so how do we start utilizing a system like this to where parents can put their biometric print of their children, and something happens if somebody sees them, in a bad situation, in a different state or a different city, right? And a police, you call the police, and you say, I think something's fishy there, right? Something suspicious. Then they go and they manage to take the child and understand that, yes, this child is, and the child could be just completely fraught at that point, right? And just completely not with it, depending on how much harm they've had. Now you can biometrically identify that child and know exactly who that child belongs to and what's going on, right? Especially if the person put in a missing persons claim on that particular child, right? So we're going to be with biometric. Your print is your password. Yeah, it'll be in. You'll go into DMV and you'll use it to get your driver's license. Yeah, you'll go into a bank and you'll use it to get to your ATM before it's over with, right? Because it's where we're going, and it's getting better and better with technology is getting better and better with time. So our business model, we are a B2B2C. So we are selling into these particular sectors to start with. So we are working with schools, health insurance companies, large businesses, and governments, especially governments of emerging countries. And we just literally in the last few business days have signed a partnership with a very impressive company. That's, if you look at an Epic is mostly a back-end system, right, to hospitals, clinics, and process flow and all of that. They have that much better than Epic in my mind, but it's all built in the cloud. It's all SaaS model. They are in 8 countries, 190 clinics and hospitals by now, and we are going to be their front. We're going to do a white label with them, and we're going to be their front end patient portal, right? Because they love what we do. The fact that the person can take their data all over the world.
What's the name?
Their name?
Yeah.
That's private right now.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, but
I was going to ask you about Epic, obviously, a little bit.
Oh.
yeah, and it's not Epic. No. Judith Faulkner would have a heart failure if she heard me speak. Probably. I'd love to replace my chart. And here we are. So we compete instead of complete, right? So you look at the Epics and the Cerners, and God forbid Oracle should actually finish this if they haven't already, and Oracle will have all of our health data. That's a very scary thought. But because I've worked with Oracle and many big companies before, and but you take all of these systems out there and all of the wearables and all of the smart IT devices that we've got, and you take that and you finally have a place where that data can be brought in. There are companies that's already doing it, right? So there's Health Gorilla that's pulling data out of systems already. There's Redux that's pulling system data. By the way, Redux was a company where all of their a bunch of engineers from Epic left and went and built this, and it started to build a system that actually pulls data out of Epic, right? How funny that is.
People are onto your system so far?
We are launching at the end of Q3, beginning of Q4. So we are pre-revenue. So we are just getting ready to start, but we've got some pretty incredible traction. This company we're going to do the white label with. As a matter of fact, I'm going to fly through financials because those have not been updated yet. But the company we're getting ready to do the white label with, they already have 7 million patients in their database, and we'll give you an idea. So we're we're working with the UK right now. We're putting a bid in on a huge project where they're taking 5 million people and they're bringing them through a 20-year study. Yeah. So 5 million people and 25 pounds per year is $150 million. Just that one project would bring that to us, right? Just to give you some idea of some of our traction, but we'll get to the traction slide. But if you're looking at how we price it, we pretty much price it at, the West, of course, will be much higher than the East. We're launching in India to start with, because I've built the product in India. My entire development team is there as well. We've been talking with the government of Tamil Nadu. They run everything by paper. They have 50 mini clinics we're going to go into in the next few months, and we're going to start putting BIOS in that center. We're talking to 37 universities. That's in a group called the VELS Group, and getting ahead of myself. But all of that's happening over the course of the next 3 to 6 months. Yeah. So people ask me, Mary, why do you think this is going to happen, right? Because there's a graveyard of companies that's come in. And then there's just a zombie zone, really, where there's a ton of these companies out there that are doing this kind of medical record thing, right? But how are you going to do something different? Well, we're taking that data, we're going to use AI on the back end, and we're going to deliver you a very personalized health experience, right? So based on you and your health and what you're not just a demographic and not just a number that's a diabetic or a cancer patient or whatever, but how do we start to bring data to you as an individual based on the data that comes in from your
That's not
devices
easy.
or your
It's very complicated.
very complicated. And not only that, but I know, I understand where you're going to go with that, but let me just say one more thing. So we are going to give you the individual the ability to put data in their own record. Yeah. So the culmination of these things, nobody's doing, because there's what there is there's an entire data level that's missing here, right? A data layer. And so that data layer is our data. And how are we feeling based on what we have, right? So we do a speech to text that we're implementing as well, where people can go in and you can put your own, how am I feeling today? How am I doing? Especially in some of these clinical trials and whatnot that are going on that we are hoping to get in front of and to be a part of. But yeah, let me get through this and we'll address the question. Yeah. So, the need, the market, the tech, it's all come together. In corporate, I think we have the old saying where, strategy eats culture, or culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? Well, the timing is everything. And so with COVID, we're coming out of a heightened season of we want to know what's happening with our health now, right? There's more and more people that are really in tune to what's going on with my health. And the best way to do that is know what's going on inside of us as well. So our go-to-market strategy is we're focusing on India right now. We've got some really great traction and we're going there. Although, again, this deck is maybe a few weeks old and we just are signing papers. So with this new company, we are going to be actually doing a Bluebird in LA, in UK, and starting with some hospitals in India as well. And, we're going to take it. We're going to expand on the opportunity that we have. I sit on the board of a company called Acha, and they're looking at 12 countries right now across Latin America. And so we're looking at how do we standardize digital health information. And so we're looking in as well across quite a few countries in Africa as well as Latin America.
Everywhere. It's an issue.
Yeah.
Middle East, there's lots going on too.
Absolutely. So, we launched our beta in Q2. We've got people who are not paying. We're testing it. We're testing the heck out of the platform right now. And again, I've already talked about the white label that we're doing some work with in the universities, because, believe it or not, our students are still handing in a piece of paper for their immunization records, right? In majority of the schools around the world. My son just finished medical school a year and a half ago, and his last year of school, he had to hand in his immunization still on a piece of paper at a medical school. So it's pretty crazy. I'm gonna skip through these slides because, again,
So
the
what's
numbers.
other alternative. You're not using paper. Where are you going to give that?
It's all handled online. So your information is in the profile, and you're going to connect. So we'll go to university. I'll give you an
Oh, so
example.
that means the person has to have like a smartphone, basically, show their.
No, you don't show anything. You just share your information. So let's say University X signs up with us, and they have 55,000 students, right? So what we'll do is that we have a system that was designed specifically for academia, and so they have that system, and we'll go in, we'll do a B2B contract with them, and then we'll do KYC information exchange, right? And so we'll do KYC. We'll take all the information for the students, and we'll create an ID for them. So the students come into school, they say, go click on this, they'll download, they have all their information there, and all they have to do is upload their health information in their app instead of, if it's not already. If we don't have, the connection with it from a CVS or from a Walmart or from a whatever, wherever they took their immunizations, but data will get put into your app. Now you've got that data there for any doctor. It's not just school. You've got your data to carry around with you at this point, right? We've even talked to border control in some of the countries. When COVID hit, we started talking to border control in India, in Australia, in Thailand, and looking at this. So you have your BIOS Health Pass, because it's called the BIOS Health Pass, right? So you come across and you've got your QR code. It says whether you've been tested, by the way, right? It gives you that information. And if you have location services on, it'll tell you where you've traveled and what the requirements are. Again, I'm going to skip through this, guys, because the financials are really off now based on, and I haven't had a chance. We haven't sat down to really do the new review. I took the valuation off because now we have a completely different valuation based on we'll be in the black very quickly because of the white label company that, like I said, they've got 7 million patients, and so right from the get-go we'll be in very good shape. Um,
Looking for capital raise? or not?
We are, yeah. So
You
2.5
didn't tell us
million
how you make money.
through
How do you
those,
make
through
money?
those.
So people will buy a subscription in the
So
service, or
what'll happen is these companies, Shell Oil, for example, right? I was just on the phone with the global CIO of Shell, who I used to work for. And Jay's all over this, right? Because they send people all over the world. They're going to buy it and they're going to give it to their employees. We're talking to Allianz, right? Allianz is one of the largest health companies in the
multinational
world.
companies
So
like
these
that,
companies,
right?
we want to go B2B2C because we want to do land grab as quickly as possible, right? Because we don't want the ethics of the world to come and say, hey, shake their fists and go, sorry, lady. Judith already told the Congress that there's no problem in interoperability in healthcare. Everybody just needs to have ethics.
You should look at the multinational insurance companies.
Absolutely. Great advice. Yeah. But that's where we want to be. We want to be in that space and playing with those particular folks. So we are looking for capital and I've invested a whole ton of money myself in. I'm vested to this in my mother's honor, and I sold all my Shell stock and I'm all in. So I built the platform. I tried to de-risk it. I actually did all the design and all the logic that sits behind it. And there's no better user than yourself, because I know what I want, and I've traveled the world, and I know what I want to be able to have at my fingertips. And so, we get to a point where the EMT will pick you up in a bar that you passed out in, or you fell off the sidewalk or whatever, and they're going to scan your hand in the ambulance, and before you get to the hospital will know exactly what you have and what they need to be prepared for. That's where we're going with
They
this.
have that kind of equipment, I guess, at this time, scanning your fingerprints.
They might
So
not
there's-
have it today, but they will get it. She is preparing for the future, not for today.
Okay.
So we already have the technology. So we have the device that scans your hand, and it's getting better and better with our software. And we take a scan and we put it directly into the blockchain, by the way. So it doesn't sit on a SQL database or anything else that somebody has a root admin to. It's in a block that nobody can touch, and it's immutable, right? And so, but yeah, that's something that there are some companies that do palm print. I think Langholm has a palm, right? You can pull up information with palm, but again, it's just for their departure. But it's great. Everybody should at least have that much, right? Today, you think that as much money as the United States spends in healthcare, right? But yeah, so journey ahead. We've got some incredible things. I'm gonna tell you one of the things I'm pretty excited about is the geofencing capability that we're gonna do. So we've been talking to some smart home folks, right? And especially with people that have Alzheimer or dementia, or who's struggling with those types of challenges. We are looking at partnering with a company that looks at movement in your house, right? Whether it has smart devices sitting in your light structure or somewhere else where you can geofence a person inside of a home and alert someone when they are moved outside of that home or whatever. So we're going to start doing that type of work in the future. And of course, the biggest thing is to just start to be to have that open platform on the back end that we can talk to other systems, right? To pull other data in and have your complete record. And again, we don't need 567,233 lines of data, right? We just need the crucial information that's specific to you that a doctor needs to know about. And I built that interface with one of the top ER doctors in the world.
But the rest of the data is available on demand, or you just exclude whatever is not in your phones?
No, we're not pulling all that data in. We're only pulling data in
that you think
that
is reasonably useful.
It's based on, I mean, we've got some pretty significant medical staff that are on as our advisors, and we built this system with them hand in hand, that said, what's the critical information that a doctor really needs to know? Because where I'm going with this is I want to create a universal health record, right? So I've got someone on my staff that is Dr. Derek Yock. I wish he could have been here today. He's in DC dropping his son off at school, first-time university student, but he's been at executive level in the WHO. He was Indra Nooyi's right hand at PepsiCo when they did their whole health policy and whatnot. But he's connected to quite a few governments. And so what we're doing is we're trying to go in at different levels and figure out, what is it? What do we need? What do we need to start talking? Let's start talking about this. And what can one person carry that is good enough, right? Because the EU just passed legislation not long. See, the whole thing is around legislation. Timing is everything, right? COVID changed all of that. The EU just recently passed legislation that says all EU citizens and countries now will be able to share data, right? They want to do that. So they're trying to build a system, and we're trying to get in the door to say, we've got one built. Can we show it to you, right? But they need to be thinking larger, right? Because if there's any most traveled person in the world, it's people from Europe, right? And they go to Asia and they go all over the place, right? Australia. And what happens when they don't have their records there, right? So I'm trying to get people to think bigger
Are you US-based company?
yes, we're US-based Delaware B Corp, because we are all about impact. And I'm big on impact, social impact. And I also started a nonprofit company called ICU, because I've been the underdog all of my life. And I have a big heart for, I've done a lot of work in some of the poorest countries in the world, right? And I have seen enough poverty and I've seen enough people suffering that I want to figure out how do we help everybody. So we're going to utilize ICU to do that. I'm going to put money from BIOS into ICU, to be quite honest with you, and the investor should know up front, we're taking 10% of all the proceeds of BIOS every year to start with and put it into ICU, because we're going to go help solve this problem in refugee camps and underserved communities around the world.
There's an event in Italy on October 22nd called Healthware Frontiers of Health. And I'm very friendly with the person who founded it.
I'd love to talk to you about that.
Roberto Ascione. And the other thing is, I'm very friendly with someone in India who he didn't speak English. He built a site and it teaches 110 million people in India how to speak English for free.
Yeah, beautiful.
Khanbahali.com.
Excellent. We'll talk.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing with our technology, we looked at GPT-3, which is, that the open source translator, right? And so, so what we want to do is we want to, if again, Tokyo, right? If a doctor in Tokyo, if you share your information, he'll actually be able to read it in Japanese, right? And so we're working towards going in that direction. So I don't, but when you said you were there, I'm like, man, I've got to figure out how do I talk to him later on, but let's talk. Yeah, we are looking to hire. I am at that point where we're trying to bring capital in to make very strategic hires, and chief data science is one of the guys that females, males, whatever that we want to bring in. I didn't. Yeah.
I'm not saying chief data sign off. So I'm saying chief data.
Yeah, we do not have one yet. Yeah, but we are looking for that. We're looking for a chief data scientist as well. But I do have a couple of people lined up for the role of on the AI side of things, because we are looking for that to start building the right algorithms. Because I don't know your name, but Samir's got a great point, and it's hard, right? What we want, where we want to go, it's hard, right? Where we're at right now, it's just the easiest part of solving the equation, right? Which is at least let me upload my information that I have, right? So I don't have to do it 15 times a year, and people can share it, right? And I don't have to go through that. And I have enough information in there right now to be able to save my life. That's the most important thing to me, right? So,
Mary, I mean, I don't know the pricing for the data warehousing, but if you have access to data, just take it all. That's number one. And number two, I think reaching a critical number of patients is the critical piece.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned something in the beginning about
monetize.
Not for you only, but also for the patient. I mean, can you explain a little bit about that?
So, Robert had a point where he worked with health companies and they are looking to monetize data, right? But what they want to do is they want to bring that money into themselves, into that company, right? Nothing against Robert. I'm just saying there's company, by the way, people do it all the time. It's a huge multi-billion-dollar company out there to sell people's health data. And they're selling it to life science companies and schools or whatever. They're trying to do good stuff with it. I get it. But I don't get to any of that money, right? And the hospitals get it. And why should the hospital have it? It's my data, right? Yep. So we're going to do a pass-through. I am absolutely committed to that. As a matter of fact, my CFO has heart failure every time he hears me talk about this, because I don't care about that money. Yeah, we'll make money. This thing has legs. You talk about UK, 25 pounds per person, right? There's how many millions of people? The EU, we get that deal. There's 457 million people in the EU, $25 a year. You know how much that comes up to? It's well over $1 billion. More than petty cash, Michael. But at the point is that I want you to get that money. We will charge a percentage only what we need to manage the backend system and administration piece of doing all of that. Have the system. But if I could, the best gift in the world out of this whole product for me would be able to give a person sitting in a refugee camp a few $100s a year for their data.
So would you see what is let's say I'm a Pfizer and I buy the data to do an algorithm and stuff, and I pay you $10 million. You see,
I
but
see it
then
going
that
to you.
data is coming from 10,000 patients. So,
Might be coming from 10, it may come from 10 million patients.
but then the distribution, you'll send them 3 cents. You know, I mean,
No. We'll have more than just one company.
Yeah.
We're not just going to have a Pfizer. We're going to have a ton of companies, life companies out there, right? And life science companies out there. There are many of these companies, and they spend big bucks.
I know.
Yeah, so it's not 3 cents. It's not one company. It's multiples.
Question, I have probably a list of questions, and
Well, we can probably do one-on-one.
Yeah, we can do
sometime. Yeah.
one-on-one,
You should
but,
probably get
Because
to the.
let me wrap this up. You go tell me your question though. The one of the million.
in terms of,
He's very deep in that area.
Okay, great.
in terms of the elephants that you must face.
Yes, many.
Along the journey, the cerners, the epics, which are the source of records for the majority of hospital systems
Yep.
in the US,
Yep.
as well as many.
Yep.
Yes. You have Cerner who's acquired an insurance company, so you have an insurance sector. They also have acquired CVS Health. So there are going to be some major barriers that you're going to have to.
Why do you think? What do you think the barriers are?
I couldn't tell you specifics. We're going to go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But that's just one piece of it. The other piece of it has to do with cross-border access to data. And I'm speaking from someone who's delivered FICO's first analytic cloud in 11 countries, and the challenges of getting data just from bureaus.
I hear you.
bureaus in this country.
I hear you. Yeah.
Some of those challenges, as well as, consent from patients for the data.
Yeah.
But anyhow.
Yeah.
we can have a
So
sidebar, just
I
things
look
to
forward
think
to that. Absolutely. And believe me, I've thought a lot about this. We've been building this thing for 2 years, right? And I have, like you, Shell's a small nation, right? And so we have put data in almost every country in the world, okay? And there are huge ramifications and regulations around data and the way we manage data and the way we manage networks and the way we manage security, right? Because I don't know if you know this, but Shell is the #1 financial institute that is not a financial institute. How much money do you think went through their treasury before COVID in 1 year?
$3 trillion.
Over $1 trillion. Yeah. And so I get it. I hear you, man. But data is my life. I've been around data like you. I fell in love with data in the early 90s when I was coding on the mainframe back in the day. And it is just one of those things where, it is going to be the life source for us in the end.
I taught ER diagramming when I was 16.
I love it. So incredible team. You can't read all of that. I'm sorry, but let me just give you the highlights. So Derek Yock is right next to me. So he is my SVP of Global Health and Policy. And Derek's just got an incredible background. He's been in executive in the WHO for many, many years. He's from South Africa. He's an incredible amount of worked for a lot of different governments. He's on a lot of different boards across many different countries right now. EU being one of them, as I mentioned. And so he joined not long ago and is just fascinated by what we're doing. And
We gotta wrap it up.
Yeah.
So,
I'm going to just say incredible. Each one of us across there, Dr. Robert Levine, he's over to the right. Each one of us across there have well over 2.5 decades. And Ben was the CISO for Shell, the deputy CISO for Shell. So whole development team, incredible group in India, very well seasoned, all senior professionals. And there's my info if you want to take it down and get in touch with me. Look forward to
We'll be
chatting.
sending them out to
Send that to me.
Yeah.